Okay, we have the benefit of a substantial amount of experience in running support groups, and you're going to hear different perspectives on the goals and how they run and the services that they provide. The outreach in this regard is essential because this is such a huge job, and the better our parents, and I can speak as a lawyer, the better our parents do and cope, the easier it is for those of us assisting them professionally to do our jobs and obtain the result that we all want. And for this, the support groups are essential. Even some of the comments we've heard about the benefit of people coming together at this conference and feeling that sense of community and validation is something that those who participate in the support groups receive on an ongoing basis. I first became aware of ISNAF. Karen Rubin, who is the founder of that organization, had been running support groups in Los Angeles, and I was invited to speak there. And the impression that I still have so many years later was just of that sense of community, that just warm, enveloping feeling that pervaded that whole gathering. And I've never forgotten that feeling. And that is being carried on admirably by Cindy Hirsch and George Ross. And there's so much good that has come out of that process. So as you spend more time in this field, and you know, I've been introduced to Philip at a couple of the conferences, and Philip, for those of you who have noticed, has a little care dog with him, the most well-behaved dog probably in the history of North America, and just astounding, and has some very interesting things to share. So I'll give you just a brief backgrounder on each of our speakers because their full bios are at the back of your program guide. And so I'll start with Philip. Philip is educated in psychology and business and certified as a counselor, family mediator, parent educator, forensic specialist, and child access provider. So you can see the breadth of services. He's based in Colorado, where he runs a support group and as well does advocacy work and the Colorado Children's Center. Cindy, as I mentioned, is now the lead of ISNAF, which serves most of California, but is able to pull in people from beyond. She has vast experience working with alienated parents and is an alienated parent herself, is able to draw on that. And ISNAF's work, I've experienced firsthand, is truly remarkable. And our third speaker, Anna Teve, if I pronounce that correctly, is the founder of a support group in New Jersey and facilitates monthly meetings there, involved with parent coaching and consultations on PA. So one thing we're coming across increasingly, and perhaps PASG could do a better job of pulling it all together and making it accessible, there's a tremendous amount of parent coaching services available through many of our speakers and others. And if we can pull that together and make that accessible to people, it's a great service to our targeted parents and indirectly a great service to our service providers. So I'm going to turn it over, and we haven't really discussed what the order their panel is going to go in, but Anna, okay, Philip will go first? Okay, Philip, why don't you lead it off?
Good morning, everybody. Philip Hendricks, and I reside in Castle Rock, Colorado, which is halfway between Denver and Colorado Springs. So I'm on the border of one major city and one respectable size city. We draw from a very diverse population, but we are attempting to tackle a problem that is, I believe, everywhere, but perhaps more pervasive in Colorado because of, and I'll blame it on the judicial environment, the clinical environment, in that I receive much resistance from my colleagues in the mental health profession. And it's discouraging, while at the same time we know there are advances, and there is an ever-growing awareness, particularly among the parent population, that this problem exists, and we are now pointing a finger at it, and hopefully that will make some headway in dealing with this issue. So I run a group called Colorado Parental Alienation Support, and we are actually been in existence. We predate Joni's group, PAS Intervention, but we are now one of their chapters. We serve as the Colorado chapter. We are perhaps, and I say one of, the largest and longest running support group in existence dealing with parental alienation issues. We meet at least monthly in a public library just south of Denver. Admittance to the group, and to date it's been limited to those who reside in Colorado, is through registration on meetup.com, and as we are prone to infiltration from alienators, posers, and general troublemakers, I use both a short online questionnaire and additional one-to-one filters that I apply in an attempt to weed out those that I deem are not a good match for the group. The group is primarily focused on helping targeted parents and family members through education, as I believe this is the first and best tool to protect oneself from these issues and to extricate oneself from these circumstances. Secondly, we attempt to empower parents to assert their rights in safeguarding their children's best interest. Third, we advocate for families against the child abuse and intimate partner violence that is parental alienation. I speak on a variety of topics, have guest lecturers of legal, mental health, and other professions, and facilitate a consult to discuss individual cases. Topics are driven by interest level of attending members and are varied based on what I perceive are the needs of the group. The concept is that no one but those present in the room can really understand the range of issues, range of emotions that we as targeted parents must deal with. Nobody will understand it better than those present. This alone provides attendees with a sense of camaraderie and comfort. Our saying is, you are not alone. Never give up.
I'd like to open with saying that while we run a support group, seeing this community and watching PASG grow over the years is amazing, tremendous support for our parents, just seeing the work getting done that we know we need to have. So with that, I'm going to give you a little bit of history from our organization. ISNAF, International Support Network for Alienated Families, was founded in 2008 by Karen Lebeau, an alienated mother who is a licensed marriage and family therapist. Her goal was to provide hope, comfort, support, and education for alienated families as well as the public. Karen's original intention was to operate as a therapeutic group. Due to some health challenges, Karen stepped down and asked a group of committed parents involved in ISNAF to take the helm and carry forth her mission. Karen is now reunited with one of her daughters, who moved her to Northern California into a nursing facility nearby where she could help with their care. While she is still alienated from two of her daughters, she is reunited with her youngest. In 2011, Karen turned ISNAF, a nonprofit 501c3 organization, over to our current board. After losing custody of my son, I accepted the invitation to take the leadership of the organization. We are an all-volunteer entity with a board of directors comprised of alienated and reunited parents and an advisory board that includes the top professionals in parental alienation. Our current operations. ISNAF is no longer a therapeutic group. We are a support group offering understanding, acceptance, and education while strengthening self-image, self-esteem, critical thinking, physical and emotional well-being. We understand firsthand the challenges both emotionally and financially as we can personally relate to each participant's story. We have an active website, a Facebook and Instagram accounts, as well as YouTube channel with soon-to-be launched podcasts. Professionals also refer their clients as a source of additional support to their ongoing therapy. Our mission statement is to provide support, education, and resources to families affected by the alienation dynamic, advocate for change in the legal, mental health, and judicial system, and ultimately eliminate the existence of parental alienation. ISNAF has run monthly support group meetings since its inception in 2008. For the first 10 years, we also coordinated workshops, conferences, and a symposium. In 2014, we organized and sponsored a colloquium for 15 of the top professionals in parental alienation to meet and collaborate on how to move forward powerfully to make a difference in the community of parental alienation with unity and velocity. Dr. Amy Baker and Dr. Stephen Miller were the facilitators of that meeting. The message about parental alienation is becoming a topic of conversation at several levels in our communities. With a number of newly formed organizations currently doing workshops and conferences, ISNAF has chosen to primarily focus on providing resources and education to the families and their communities. We have a multitude of resources listed on our website, which include a list of knowledgeable professionals, Instagram referral links, books, Wikipedia definition, and 22 hours of video from our previous workshops, conferences, and symposium. The videos are available on ISNAF's YouTube channel. We continue our support group meetings via monthly conference call, so those around the country and Canada can join in. We also have at least 2 in-person gatherings, including one during the holidays, which are more social in nature. Our regular calls and meetings are structured with standards and disclosures while using our handbook. The handbook is approximately 135 pages and is a compilation of information from articles and books of several professionals in the field of parental alienation. The development of this handbook is with the intention of educating families, professionals such as educators, clergy, attorneys, judges, social workers, and law enforcement. Sections within the handbook include identifying parental alienation, the children, parenting, understanding how alienation occurs, tools for reunification, the targeted parent or family member, legal challenges, false allegations, personality disorders related to parental alienation, and a glossary of terms created by the professionals in attendance at the 2014 colloquium. We have a few handbooks available for sale today, or it can be purchased on our website for $35. And Anna will be having the handbooks if you're interested. See her during the break. During the meetings, we have voluntary sharing from each participant, beginning with their intention and what they would like to get from the meeting. We allow verbal contributions from the other participants where they can cross-share, but from their experiences only. We do not allow opinions from other participants. We strictly adhere to the policy to avoid personal opinions or conflicts. Throughout the year, we provide focused support group meetings, such as creative ways to communicate with your child, coping with the community that is uninformed, stories from parents that have reunified with their children, dealing with family members that don't understand, and getting through the holidays. The biggest step we made this year was the commencement of our grief program. The first group began the program in June. The grief program was designed specifically because we continue to see a need for parents suffering from the ongoing loss of access to their children. With the guidance of the program leader, alienated parents and grandparents can work through an intensive hands-on 7-week program facilitated by Lisa Camp, one of our board members. She's here this weekend. Lisa, will you please? Lisa is a certified grief specialist as well as an alienated parent. The goals of the program are to review the painful journey parents have undergone through alienation, do exercises that help work through the pain, give tools of coping and self-care, say goodbye to the pain, forgive, and create new possibilities in moving forward with their current circumstances. We have had 3 groups complete the 7-week program to date and have had excellent feedback. See Lisa or visit our website for more information on how you can participate in the program. Our challenges. Since we are an all-volunteer, self-funded nonprofit, our biggest challenge is fundraising. We have pursued fundraising campaigns which are labor-intensive and time-consuming. When we reach out to parents, they are dealing with their own financial circumstances and usually don't have additional funds for contributions. Most of our funding has been provided by our board of directors' efforts and contributions. Each board member has reached into their own professional communities and into their own pockets. This has become cumbersome since they also commit numerous hours of volunteer time. Currently, we ask parents for nominal donations for meetings, the handbook, and the grief program. This is currently our main source of income. We have pursued grant money, which is difficult because parental alienation is not recognized as a social problem in the general public. We do not qualify in the categories of child abuse, domestic violence, or education, since parental alienation is not yet a commonly recognized form of psychological child abuse. Since parents don't find support until their cases have already gone to moderate or severe, they have limited funds to hire the professionals that are truly knowledgeable. It is difficult to refer them to professionals that understand parental alienation after their cases have been improperly represented and the mental health community has already gotten it wrong. We need to work with parents in the beginning of their cases before their financial resources are depleted. Bringing about awareness is still a challenge since the general public is not familiar with the term parental alienation. However, they do recognize the behaviors of both the parents and the children. Our successes. ISNAF's boards have been extremely supportive of the organization, and we have a long retention of their participation and contributions in time, money, and passion. For that, we are very grateful. We provide a forum for parents to know that they are not alone, offering compassion, acceptance, non-judgment, comfort, and hope, connecting them with the supportive community of peers. We have been instrumental in the reunification of families through our support and education. Karen LeBeau wrote a chapter 7 in working with alienated children and families in the clinical guidebook, and there are 19 pages of important information on facilitating support groups. It is a how-to for forming your own group in your communities. We direct parents to knowledgeable professionals to prevent their cases from going sideways. We have educated parents, families, educators, attorneys, and the community at large with our handbook. We emphasize the importance of self-care. We help parents understand that while they are victims, their children are primary victims. We have created daily affirmations for those dealing with parental alienation to help them stay motivated and see possibility. This is the purpose of our Instagram account. ISNAF has a new fundraising wall called the dedication page on our website. This wall is for parents for parents or friends to add the name of an alienated child, for as little as $1 a month. United we stand, remembering every child that has undergone parental alienation. We invite you to visit our website and add your child's name. All donations go to further the efforts of ISNAF. We look forward to the day when every child has been reunited. We have successfully launched our grief program to help parents work through the pain and grief of losing access to a child. ISNAF's future goals and objectives. We are creating a podcast consisting of conversations with professionals, parents, grandparents, law enforcement, educators, and the community at large as a forum to educate about the personal experience of families dealing with parental alienation, share reunification stories, bring about awareness, education, and continue to advocate for reform. We are creating a focus group for those dealing with adult children. We look forward to having this focus group as part of ISNAF. Brian Hart, one of your speakers in the legal track, has joined our board and will be doing these on a committee. We want to create regional chapters of ISNAF for semi-annual in-person gatherings for summer social and holiday gatherings. And finally, we would like to create a means of ongoing substantial financial contributions to offer families funding to help deal with the challenges in their cases. Those funds would be used for hiring knowledgeable professionals to help with the strategies, as well as expert witnesses to prove their cases and educate judges. The funds could also help fund mental health services needed in these high conflict cases. In closing, we would like to invite alienated parents to participate with ISNAF or volunteer in an active role to forward, educate, and support and offer well-being. ISNAF believes every child deserves to love both parents. We look forward to continuing to serve the families in need.
Hello, my name is Anna Tavati, and I'm honored to be here today as a part of this community. I'm a licensed social worker and a parent mentor who facilitates peer-led support groups in New Jersey. My group, PASG, which stands for Parental Alienation Support and Awareness New Jersey, gathers twice a month. Myself and Lisa Carl facilitate a group each in our home counties. Our meetings are free and open to the public, and we primarily publicize them on meetup.com. I held my first peer support group meeting in October of 2011. Together with Lisa and a few other women over the past 8 years, PASG has been able to hold over 225 various events for the public, such as monthly support, educational programming, awareness days, and rallies. So how did I get into this? I'm a social worker, and I love stories. I love people's stories. So years ago, when my family was dealing with the dysfunction, the confusion, and the chaos of the ripple effects of parental alienation, I scoured the internet looking for information and support groups, and I found a couple online support forums, and I found a group of people in New Jersey. But I felt like I needed to get involved on a deeper level because as an adult child of parental alienation, my life was profoundly altered and influenced by this, by people who I love very dearly. So what got me started was my own need for a support system. But what keeps me going is that I've developed a new passion and a motivation that keeps me inspired and ignited. Over the years, various internal and external challenges have presented themselves. They've been nothing major, but just normal life happens type of challenges that impact or could impact PASG and other support groups have probably the similar situations, especially when there's not proper supports in place. So first, internal challenges, which are hurdles that affect me personally and my ability to be fully present and physically present during the monthly meetings. So the four biggest challenges for me have been, one, being a mom of 5. That's my primary job. I've had to cancel a support group here and there because of back to school night or sports events or sick child. My kids, they come first, and that's my primary job. Grad school. I took a break for nearly 6 months during my final semester, getting my social work degree. But Lisa runs another support group in the neighboring town, so I felt a sense of relief that it didn't all fall on my shoulders to continue the groups while I needed some time. Caregiving, first for my mother, and then my stepmother, and then my father-in-law during their illnesses and end of life. And the natural ebb and flow of my own interest and motivation to be involved in the realm of parental alienation. And all the, daily stress and sadness and just the things that we all experience. So those are my internal challenges that kind of impact how I facilitate the group. Some external challenges I've been met with over the years have been, one, group creation takes time and effort and dedication, definitely. When the group responsibility falls on one person, a burnout and group failure is a reality. So it's my belief that peer-led support groups should be free or just a small suggested donation. But in reality, these fees never cover the expenses. So this is where an opportunity for a nationwide support group system could come in place, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. Number 2 is dealing with difficult people, but mostly uncomfortable moments. In face-to-face support groups and anywhere we always come across people with difficult personalities. But trained facilitators have the tools to help navigate the group. But more so is uncomfortable moments. Face-to-face support groups have the ability to really help members reflect back on their actions and their responses in a way that's equally kind and firm. And I think that's one thing that face-to-face support groups have that maybe online support groups don't have, because it's difficult to reflect back to somebody in a kind and firm way without the body language and the eye contact. And 3 is that's it. That was 3. Sustainability and longevity. Oh, this is huge. Finding group facilitators who are far enough removed from the severity of their own situation to be able to run a support group. That's been a huge issue. Fortunately, I have Lisa, who's wonderful. So together, Lisa and I have been able to do this over the years. But in reality, it's probably not very sustainable for the long term. And I'll talk about this further when I talk about opportunities, which I think brings me to opportunities. We're here, right? We're all here because we've had the same idea. We've had some very similar experiences, but yet we've sort of recreated the wheel, and it took up a lot of time, I'm sure, and effort and money. And I mean, we all have a passion. We all have this passion about what we're doing, but it's a very real possibility that it's simply not sustainable for the long term. And even if our groups are sustainable for the long term, we really only get to reach out to a very small population of people, in our local communities. So that being said, I think that an opportunity to further the discussion for support groups is asking for buy-in from the mental health care professionals and experts parents affected by parental alienation, and anyone on the front lines of parental alienation, to sort of commit to coming together. And I think I've heard this. I wasn't here for the past 2 days, but I heard it touched very briefly. But coming together and essentially creating something either brand new, where we can all sort of commit to take part in and put the stamp of our name on. And this way, it will have the integrity and the sustainability and longevity for a national or international use for support groups. It would have, by having experts and mental health professionals and parents involved in it, I think that it's really important to, it leads to the integrity of the group. At the very least, I think having a way that we can all publish our groups on one combined website, because I'm on the East Coast and I barely heard of your groups over here, and maybe that's just because I had to kind of shut myself off from social media and the online support groups. And as an aside, I have been, over the years, I've been a member of online support groups, and I've probably been kicked out of most all of the online support groups that I've been in. And I either have to take accountability for that, but also I have to say, maybe, is it, just that difficult to, moderate those online support groups with thousands of people? I think so. So that being said, I think that this is a real opportunity to get together and commit to maybe joining forces, and for the benefit of families and children and for our entire community for the long term. Thank you.
Okay, so as you can see, 3 different experiences. There's a lot of commonality, but I really want to echo what Anna has said here, because we shouldn't be recreating the wheel when there's this level of expertise, and Joni's group and lots of our other members who provide parent support services just on a one-on-one basis. So that's the point of what PASG can do, is provide a nexus and a forum to get all these best practices. I mean, Karen's chapter in the guidebook is fantastic. So there's all this learning about how to run a support group, how to establish a support group, and then over the years, I mean, Cindy, you guys have learned a lot and evolved a lot since. So if we can create perhaps a model of best practices, because to Anna's point, the services have to be provided locally. It's just too hard to provide this level of service online. Resources can be posted online, but it is essentially a local, it's the gathering of people and hearing and seeing and sharing that can really only be done in person. So ultimately, there's some sort of model here that can be built, which is cross North America into Europe, where there's a model and best practices of how to run these things, and some process of the leaders of the groups sharing ideas and thoughts. So ISNAF's grief program makes a hell of a lot of sense. There was a handout in the parent track on ambiguous loss, which I found fabulous, and have a couple of clients who are receiving specific counseling for ambiguous loss. So we just need to encapsulate and share all this knowledge. So we actually have about 23 minutes because our speakers were so efficient to continue this dialogue. So I'll start it off with one question, and then let's see if we can get questions from the audience. So question that I have, and I'd like each of our panelists to answer this, is what everybody wants to tell their personal stories in these groups, and it can detract from the purpose of a group meeting. So that's one of the perennial challenges. So I'd like to hear from each of our speakers as to what their groups don't do, how, in order to have an effective meeting, you manage each individual participant's need to just spill and share and be heard about their personal saga, and any other tips for kind of what not to do, how to avoid having meetings being distracted. Anna, could I start with you?
Sure. So, I mean, I think it's really important that we share our stories. I think being able to share the pain is really very valuable in a support group, but we limit it. So we have, depending on how many people are in attendance every week, we limit it. So it's whether you get 5 minutes each at the beginning of the meeting or 2 minutes each at the beginning of the meeting to sort of just, share that part and just spill. I think that part is integral. But we do limit it. And we do have boundaries and guidelines throughout the rest of the meeting where we kind of redirect somebody who's kind of going off and just, sharing too much and sort of taking up too much of the meeting. That's why when we have a core group, a cohesive group of, support group members, then I'm able to sort of take the back seat, and then the other group members will kind of form a cell around the one person who's taking up a lot of time and redirect them and kind of integrate the rest of the group again. So.
I'd like to say in our organization, we primarily began with in-person meetings since 2008. It was last year that we had so many people find us on the internet, reach out to us, so we decided to go every other month in person, and then we go on to conference calls so that we could pick up people across the country and into Canada. And then we had such a big interest in that, so we decided this year that we would, and that was very successful, and we do find that we are able to connect via conference call. So this year we converted, as of January, voted to carry forward and see how we did this year with only conference calls, with 2 meetings a year, a summer social and a holiday gathering, and those are socials. And our calls are on Sundays once a month. We post them on our website. You can pre-calendar it for the entire year. We do that in December of every year. And the meetings are 3 hours. Usually they're from 5 to 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And we have 3 people on our board. We have a board of approximately 8 people. And we have 3 facilitators, myself, Lisa, and George, who will facilitate meetings. And the meetings begin with a brief introduction. They're very structured. We have disclosures and standards so everybody understands how we set up the call and what's expected of them. And when they RSVP to be on the call, we send them out a written email telling them what the guidelines are. You have to mute your phone. This is the time. Don't interrupt. So we already have that pre-established, the foundation. And then when we have the call, they get 1 minute for a brief introduction. We present everyone on the call with what their circumstances are for 1 minute. And then we assign, based on the number of people on the call, what everyone's time will be. Typically, it can be up to 5 minutes. They get to share their 5 minutes, and then after that, we open the floor up to those who would like to make a contribution for 5 minutes. As I mentioned, in the beginning of their share, they tell what their intention is. They got on the call for a reason, and so we want them to walk away with an answer or a solution or some ideas on whatever it is they got on the call for. So then the floor will be open to others, and people state their first name, and then they will contribute their experiences on that call. And we have a great success. We go all the way to the last minute of the 3 hours. We'll have something motivational at the end, and everybody gets their chance to share. We've had great success, and we intend to continue the conference calls at this time. And we're actually looking at opening up additional calls because we don't like to have more than about 15 people on a call, so we can run 2 calls or 3 calls at any given time because we have the 3 facilitators.
we too push the clock. As I said, we often meet in a public library, a large library, and at 9 o'clock in the evening, they are running us out the door because nobody wants to leave. Everybody has that sense of camaraderie, have a chance to share their issues. There's a unique emotional identification that is shared among people. You speak louder? Okay. There's a unique emotional identification shared among those that have this problem, that are living these lives apart from the children they love. And it's difficult to open up, but when you're in a room where everyone in the room is dealing with the same set of issues, it's comforting. And often that's the only time these people are actually given a chance to share their problems, their concerns, their thoughts, their feelings. Emotions can run high, particularly for those that are new to the group and are perhaps new to these circumstances. I can gauge where someone is in the life cycle of alienation and where they are in dealing with their issues and dealing with their circumstances by how long it takes them to tell their story. Everyone's familiar with the elevator speech. If someone can encapsulate their story in 30 seconds or a minute, or if it takes them 30 minutes to even start, it gives you a good idea of where they are emotionally and otherwise. So it's good to hear, it's good to give people a chance to open up and share these things. They can't do it with their attorney because the clock is running. They can't often open up with a psychologist or therapist. They're hesitant and not sure what to say to any court appointee that might be involved in their case because they don't know what's going to backfire. They generally trust those individuals, but at the same time they know they can't open up too much because of what might happen. Dealing with difficult people, yes, it's a problem, but you deal with it with compassion and what's referred to as emotional care or assertive care. You never want to turn your back on someone who is hurting, right? And we all need to give a little bit of ourselves to others because this is a problem that many of us in this room share commonly, is that we've had loved ones taken from us. And it's like being in a foxhole. If you know the military term for a foxhole, you're in a foxhole with someone else. They watch your back, you watch their back. And that's kind of the way it works. So there's a bonding, a unique bonding that takes place with those individuals. And oftentimes people who have just met at a particular meeting will walk out friends, and they'll share contact information and be able to be in contact with the other later after the meeting. So it's a good thing to connect those resources and be there for someone who has nowhere else to turn.
Something I wanted to add, in order for us to have cohesive meetings, Karen writes about it in her book. It's chapter 7, if anybody would like to pick that up. She always did, and I worked very closely with Karen for many years. I was a participant when I met her, and she always did an intake interview, and we do the same. So the purpose of the intake interview is so that we can determine A, that they are an alienated parent, and B, that they can work in group. And there are times when parents are undergoing PTSD and they're really stressed with the loss of an immediately lost a child recently. So it's very difficult for them to be on a call or be in a group. So those parents, George and I will typically, and Lisa, we're the ones who do the intakes, we usually will give them more one-on-one. We'll talk to them on the phone and we'll walk them through. Might suggest that they go see a therapist and we'll recommend someone. And then we pretty much will work with them on a one-on-one basis for a little bit of time until possibly they're ready to come back to group. The issue is if we have somebody who does get on one of those calls, one of our calls, not only is it difficult for the person, it is very difficult for the other participants who are already very sensitive in the area as well. So they need to be in a certain point of healing and the ability to share appropriately before we let them get on the calls. But we still will support them on a one-on-one basis. We don't serve as therapists, but we will recommend therapy if we see that they need additional help emotionally.
Okay, well, thank you for that. As you can see, our experts here have developed tools and processes to find that balance between people being heard and yet running a support group. So I'd like to open it up for questions. First one over here. Now, is there a mic or? So you know what? Why don't I'm going to share this one and then we can use that one. Oh, you got one, Tom? Okay, great. Oh, right there.
Thank you for presenting. It's really wonderful. Question I have is mainly for optics. What is the gender breakdown of and this is for everyone, of the membership list? And also, at a typical meeting, what would be the gender breakdown?
Maybe not. Hello? Yes. So we have about 300 something members on Meetup, and it's pretty much 50-50 breakdown. In our support groups, mine are generally mixed. Usually right down the middle, 50-50. Sometimes varies on month-to-month basis. Lisa's support group that she runs, because she often talks more about like legislative stuff, and for whatever reason, more men typically go to her meeting. I think I probably have a more supportive meeting that more women attend. I don't know why, but that's just the way it is.
I'm going to say we have the same. We've never had a meeting where it's been all men or all women. It's pretty much mixed.
And likewise, we're somewhere between 40 and 60% in any given meeting.
Hi, I'm Brian Hart, and I have an answer too. So I run, for the past 3.5 years, a parent support group out of Boston, and I have 265 members of the meetup group, and it's 70% moms, 30% dads, which is a little counterintuitive from the prevalence quite often. And I attribute it to, I think, my hypothesis is that moms seek help more, and fathers kind of say, oh, this is kind of how it is. And another interesting breakdown is about 50% of parents whose children are outside of the court system, that they're 18 and plus, and 50% are still involved in the court system. And may I add a couple other comments that I had prepared? Thank you. So for those that are outside of the system, I was so delighted that Lisa here developed the grief program. So for $250, they take 4 parents at a time and take them through an online grief program that has a lot of interactiveness. So they've been through 4 groups, and I've heard such great things about that because I'm not an expert in grief, and 50% of my clients are really, or members are just looking for grief support. I want to thank Joan Klotz-Zenard for really helping me with that start 3.5 years ago, and working with Cindy now, and I've chatted with Phil, and I look forward to meeting Ann Anna and discussing with her. I've expanded to New Hampshire and Rhode Island, and will be expanding to Western Mass too, a couple hours away. And what I found was I kind of have, I have a background in business, so I have a PowerPoint program, and I start out going through, I have like general meetup groups that are very educational, so I go through kind of soup to nuts with about 20 slides, and as well as starting them all with the, I say 5 minutes of sharing, but just as Phil said, if someone's new, they can't stop at 5 minutes, and I don't stop them, 10, 15, whatever they need, while being respectful. On average, I get about a dozen people come, and I'd say of the dozen, maybe 5 or 6 are brand new. I just, people find me through Google. I titled it Parental Alienation, Estrangement, and Child Custody, just hoping to get those people that don't know the phrase parental alienation yet. And what I realized is, because I have studied it so much and become a professional on it, I started out, I realized I got to do workshops too, so I got to have themes, because the average number of sessions has been about 2. They come, they finally feel a great relief of sharing, they're not the only one, they're not isolated, but then if I don't keep the content relevant, they kind of drop out. It seems, kind of boring. The first one I chose to do as a workshop was personality disorders. I felt like that's the first thing people need to realize. They're so unaware of it. I mean, I have parents who have heard from a GAL that their ex, is narcissistic or borderline, but it just like falls away. And although I'm very clear, do not use the terms narcissistic, borderline, etc., but you need to be aware of it. So I go through that education because it affects how you're going to deal communicating with your ex or understanding what they're going through, so you can be more effective from a strategic and tactical standpoint in succeeding to kind of reduce the prevalence. I've also really empowered other parents who have gone pro se, for example, because I have a lot of people that say, well, how do I go pro se? So I empower the group members to then present. I've never gone pro se, I'm no expert on it, so I had 2 parents just a couple weeks ago present their experiences in pro se. Not that we advocate pro se, but if they're going to go that route, how can we support them? Other subjects were, how does the parental alienation happen? How does brainwashing happen? A lot of Amy Baker's work. I'll just digitize into PowerPoint slides and have an educational session. And the 2 things that always come back is, and the growth of my workshops have been through my own growth of understanding, and it got to, we really just want to know what to do. Can you just tell us how to act on this stuff? So I've been really trying to refine that work, which is, thank goodness, for Richard Warshak's book, of course, Divorce Poison, which is the first thing I recommend to everybody, but Amy Baker's 8 books, and how she is so strategically and successfully co-authored with other experts, and each book has a different subject. So I just take all that material and I just digitize it into PowerPoint slides. And please, people can connect with me, and I'll share those slides with you. I want them to be able to be used more broadly, and I hadn't done that to this point, so I'm just kind of announcing that. So I think another thing is Elaine Cobb and her monthly call and for family access. Wow, is that great? She has the best experts in the world, most of which are here at this group, but please be sure that you get onto that call. And I too have to screen people, so it's a private group, because of the confidentiality nature of it. But you could Google my group, Boston Parental Alienation, and without joining my group, I too, like Phil said, I'm local. For the group, I don't take people from other states necessarily, because it is that meet face to face, but you can look at just the content that I have in the About Us and Read More section, because I'm trying to empower, so I put what I felt as the best YouTube videos that are out there and other content methods that are all free. I always encourage a parent before I'll work with them kind of individually, is go to that, take out some of the best things and get a little self-education. So thank you.
Okay, so one takeaway from what Brian just shared with us is, in addition to best practices in running groups that we can all share, there's content for the meetings, instead of it just being helping people manage their feelings, there's content that can be shared across the support groups. So yet another reason to try and bring all this together in some sort of structure where everybody can benefit from everybody's thoughts. So we are going to follow up on that. And one thing for the research track, since we know what the detractors say, if the actual experience in the support groups is that half of the participants are moms, well, that is good, solid experiential data across the country, possibly even internationally, that can be used to push back against what the detractors are saying. So there's another takeaway, learning that those of us trying to assist can take from the support groups. We have time for perhaps one more question. So yes, over there.
Thank you. This has all been great. I'm wondering if somebody who's working the website, sorry, thank you, who's working on the PASG website could provide links right on a page for everybody here, and so it's an easy click to go to ISNAF or to go to Brian or to, go something so that, and it's international, so maybe the international people can get their website up on a link on the website.
That's a great comment, and it applies not only to the support groups. There is a full list of all PSG members that is accessible on the member access only website, but it's not really usable. You can go and spend an hour and go through it, try and find the support groups. So we need to make this accessible with links and phone numbers and emails, kind of by area of interest, area of expertise. And thank you. We're going to take that to the board of directors and see if we can get somebody to do that. I had to do that for the lawyers, to just compile a list of the lawyer members, and it should be much more accessible and updated. So we are out of time, and I want to keep us on track. So I want to really thank the panelists. There is true expertise here that everybody should be drawing on, and we're going to try and formalize it and put the group leaders in contact with each other. So a big round of applause, please, for our